Good morning. Hi. Jamming. Hey. Yeah, set my background.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm just watching you.
Just
Hey,
getting
leave that
set up here.
thing.
Closer. There we go.
Oh, shoot. It's 10 o'clock.
All right. Morning, everyone. Let me stop this music.
Hey, Chanel.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to start with make sure I'm going to start with a review. Today, we're going to continue in the series of how do we deal with stress? And specifically, we want to look at why am I what I eat as part of one of the tools to deal with stress. If you remember, as we went through, we're continuing. Today's going to be the last day that we deal with some reference to this book by Dr. Mike Dow, Heal Your Drained Brain. And even though it can get kind of very medical, there's some nuggets to pull out of this that we can all kind of use. And that's what I've been trying to do over the last three sessions. So once again, remembering stress is just a natural physical and mental reaction to life experiences. It is based upon our experiences that we deem it negative or positive. And I gave examples of positive stress, especially when you're dealing with athletics, a team, the Drew Brees chant at the beginning of his games that he gets his folk motivated to spur up some of that adrenaline. That's a positive stress because your body reacts to what it's experiencing and it produces hormones and based off that reaction. But most of the time when we think of stress, we think of it negatively because we're under pressure, crunches, and things like that. But it's still the same hormones that are being produced. It's what you do with it. And we talk about how the brain responds to the things from an emotional perspective, and logical perspective. The cortex is logical, the thalamus is emotional, and that all of those experiences get filtered through either or, and it gets stored in our memory. And then we respond to it through our amygdala that produces certain reactions and spurs on some of these hormonal reactions too. So the key thing is what you experience gets stored up in your memory. And when you get under pressure and you have to react emotionally, it doesn't allow you to think. You pull from your emotional responses have been stored. And that's why you have to be cognizant of that and why you have to be always affirming yourself to be able to put positive memories and allow that to be stored. Because if not, you're going to go to past. And that's because of a defense mechanism that's built in. And that's what we usually call limbically hijack, because our body goes to emotional first to save us time so that we don't process and think, and we pull on those stored emotions and we react to that. And so you can see it based off a lot of things that have happened. I mean, look at what happened in January 6th when they stormed the Capitol and people were getting powered up. Words and emotions started building and people reacted and they didn't process and think, because some of those same folks that are being prosecuted now are saying, I disavow that. I didn't want to do that, this and that, because I believe it at that time. When you get spurred on, let's take it back. They're stealing from you. Listen. And then you've gone through unemployment, you got through fired, all those emotions are being pulled out and your body is reacting to it versus being able to process it through your mind. And that's important. That's why we spend some time in the brain, because it deals with our behavior, our personality, our attitude, all those different things based upon the first couple series we dealt with about understanding ourselves. How does stress affect our body? Well, we see that it has increases cholesterol, fatty acids, blood pressure, inflammation. All those are the negative parts of our body because of stress. And that is where we get into, so we're dealing with that and we view stress as negative and how it affects our body because of the hormonal responses. How do we deal with that? Well, stress produces adrenaline, cortisol. Now, adrenaline makes your heart rate speed up faster. And that's why when a lot of people are under negative stress, men and women, because the number one killer in women is not breast cancer, it is heart attacks. Just like men, when you're under pressure, your adrenaline speeds up. What do you do with that? Cortisol is produced also because it's meant to be able to convert, energy quickly from stored fat so that you are able to fight or run. Dopamine is released because of pleasure and to be able to override pain and get you going. Serotonin is released because it's, once again, the happy chemical to be able to counter stress and negativity. And then melatonin is also produced because it's an inverse relationship with cortisol. It helps you sleep so you can rest. So cortisol is produced to be able to get you up in the morning, but then cortisol breaks down into melatonin so that you can sleep at night. And the fact of light produces that, triggers that effect to convert cortisol to melatonin and melatonin to cortisol to get you up. Then we also talked about stress management. How do you deal with stress that's negatively affecting you? Well, part of it, you got addictive behaviors that are a result of stress. And that's where therapy, medication, and rehab can help you out to be able to exercise different techniques and practices and procedures that you develop because of dealing with negative stress, such as overeating or drugs, alcohol, insomnia, you can't sleep. Well, yoga, meditation, breathing helps be able to release some of those things in your mind so that you can be able to have your mind stop working, because your brain is an organ too. And so you got to allow it to rest in order for you to be able to get into sleep. Eating habits, we talk about nutrition, and we're going to deal with that a lot today. Anxiety, depression, because of your serotonin levels and your dopamine levels being exhausted and not being replaced, you can get into depression, anxiety. Therapy, breathing, medication, some sleep studies, or all those things can help out. You can have a weakened immune system, because if your body's always constant running and doesn't get rest, it can burn itself out. And that's where nutrition, exercise, supplements, that's what we're going to deal with today, can help with that balance. Isolation is part of a negative effect. You just don't want to deal with people. And that goes hand in hand with anxiety and depression. You just want to get away, don't want to get out of the bed, all those different things. Well, that's where a group of friends, family, church groups, those things help allow you to get a socialization, because we feed off each other. Interaction with other people will help produce dopamine and serotonin. There's oxytocin, which is touch. Same thing with babies, with their mothers. It's the same thing with people. We go and interact. Laughing releases hormones to help with that. So that's why you have to avoid that isolation. Triggers and negative effects trigger health problems, and you have to deal with doctor, therapy, medications. Let's deal with nutrition. Well, I start with the food pyramid because it's important to understand. And I hate to bring this up with the corona going on, but there are reasons why people don't trust government. We talk about it with vaccinations because of what they did in the Tuskegee experiment and allowing folks who were contracted with syphilis and all that experience pain and die from it and blindness, even though they had a cure. So there's a lot of distrust. Well, I don't want to add to that, but you also have to be informed. How many of us heard of the food pyramid? If you have, that was brought up, just raise your hand, just to, okay. Well, when the food pyramid was brought out early in the early 80s, they had the food triangle. You'll see something different than the food pyramid I'm showing here. This is the food pyramid. It's a recent food pyramid, 2021. The original food pyramid, if you look at it compared to this, is opposite. It's reverse. If you look at the, here at the bottom currently is what you're supposed to eat the most, and then as you go up, less and less. If you look at the original food pyramid that was released by Congress, it's reverse. They had all the breads at the bottom, all the other fatty stuff in the bottom that you're supposed to eat. And the reason is because there were certain lobby groups with processed food and all that was able. Oh, yes.
Quick question. What year was the one on the right side given?
This one is a recent one. It's in 2021. This is the most recent one.
So the one with the plate, that's the most recent one, or the one with?
I'm sorry. Well, these are both recent, but the actual food pyramid that's I'm talking about right over here, on the right hand side, that's more what I'm concentrating on. Is just basically, this is recent too, where they say that this is a healthy, if you take these portions of different foods, that's a healthy portion. That is true.
Okay.
The food pyramid was saying of the different type of foods that are related to this, you want to start with the bottom, which is you want to eat more vegetables, salad, and fruits first. And
Mhm.
then you want to go up to whole food, wheats and that. And then you get into milks, less and less as you go up that you want from it. These are the most current ones. What I was referencing was the older ones back in the 80s.
Okay.
Okay. That actually, and I should have probably put the pyramid, but you can Google it. This actual pyramid on the right-hand side is reverse. They start with food, sugar, and all these other breads and things like that they wanted you to eat more, what they said. And that's a lie. And the reason why was that propagated because there were lobbyists that went to Congress that said, if you do what you're saying that should be right, then our business is going to go under. So they manipulated the food pyramid so that put out wrong information. And you see the effects 20 years later. Kids are fat coming up now. I mean, it's the truth. There are more child diabetes issue going on. And that's where you compare us in this country versus Europe. Europe talks about healthy nutrition, eating right. They shop for the day. They have local markets in their neighborhoods. The biggest store over there is Aldi's. That's their Walmart. They don't have a Walmart over there. They have Aldi's, but most of their shopping is done at the local market right in their neighborhood that they can bike to or walk to, and they shop for the day. The refrigerators are smaller because they believe in natural eating for the day, lack of preservatives. Think about what we're putting into our body that stays for 2 months. And we talk about all the pressure and preservatives, salt, and sodium, and cancers that's being resulted. So so it goes back to this food pyramid. The original food pyramid was reversed of what it is now. What you're seeing now is the accurate. But what was put out was propaganda to keep businesses going.
Okay, thank you. I thank you for breaking it down for me. I appreciate it.
And it's sad, but that's why you have to be informed. So reason why this is important to understand food and nutrition, because I'm concentrating on nutrition to be able to deal with stress. That's very important. Because one of the key things is nutrition and exercise. But to exercise effectively, you have to eat properly because you need food, fuel to be able to process. And then once you understand how that works in your body, then you can see where sometimes you might need supplements and vitamins and things to be able to help out. And then you can also see how cancer kind of starts in our cells when you understand the process of how your body produces energy. Now, when we say we want to produce energy, food to energy, one of the key ways that we talk about that is called cellular respiration. So anyone studying science and medical is going to get to that. How does your body take food and make energy? And when you understand that, then you understand how you can be affected by what you eat. That's why we say you are what you eat. And if anyone, when I put out that meme out there to advertise this session, you have, what's the name from the Matrix that's talking about, when people hate eating right and dieting, hate dieting. But, but the reality is, it's not that you're trying to eat differently. It's what you're supposed to be eating every day. Dieting is a one-off. Nutrition is living every day. And we should be eating right daily. If you eat right daily, that transfers into other things that you'll see. But you have to understand the process of how your body transfers the food that you eat into energy. Because if you don't do it right, it won't go into energy right. and it gets stored into fat. Or there's byproducts when you're producing energy that have to be released, and that's when you can get into cancer. I'm going to play this video. It's just a 4-minute video. Now it can get technical, but I'm going to explain it on the other side of it, but I want us to understand this because it's important.
Cellular respiration. So what is cellular respiration? Well, cellular respiration is basically the breakdown of organic molecules such as carbohydrates, fats, and amino acids, which make up proteins, to produce energy. Glucose, which is a simple carbohydrate, is the preferred source for the cellular respiration pathway. In this video, we're going to go through the basics of this process. We're not going to go through every single step in detail, rather a summary of the steps. There are 4 main stages that take place during cellular respiration: glycolysis, an intermediate stage, the citric acid cycle, and the electron transport system. An important thing to know is that glycolysis does not require oxygen, making it anaerobic, and the other 3 stages do require oxygen, making them aerobic. So let's say you eat a banana, which contains glucose, and your body wants to take some of that glucose and convert it to cellular energy. Inside the cytosol of a cell is where the first step, glycolysis, takes place. During glycolysis, a molecule of glucose, which has 6 carbons, goes through a series of steps which lead to the glucose molecule being converted to 2 pyruvate molecules. These pyruvate molecules have 3 carbons each, so 6-carbon glucose to 2 3-carbon pyruvates. During glycolysis, 2 ATP molecules are invested and 4 ATP molecules are produced, so a net gain of 2 ATPs. ATP is the energy currency in cells, so you can think of it like a gas can that provides the fuel to do cellular work. Another key thing is that during glycolysis, 2 molecules of NADH are produced, and these molecules will be used in a later process. The pyruvates that are produced have 2 pathways. If sufficient oxygen is available, they will enter into the intermediate stage. And if oxygen is not available, pyruvate is converted to lactate. We will cover this pathway in depth in a later video. Next is the intermediate stage. With oxygen available, the pyruvates will enter a mitochondria, which is an organelle in the cell. Here, pyruvate is converted into acetyl-CoA. 2 more molecules of NADH are produced, and a carbon dioxide CO2 molecule is released. Next is the third stage, the citric acid cycle. In the citric acid cycle, acetyl-CoA goes through several steps, leading to the production of 1 ATP molecule, 3 NADH molecules, and 1 FADH2 molecule, as well as the release of 2 more carbon dioxide molecules. But remember, we started with 2 acetyl-CoA molecules, so the citric acid cycle must occur twice, which gives a total of 2 ATPs, 6 NADHs, 2 FADH2s, and a total of 4 carbon dioxide molecules are released. Now for the 4th stage, the electron transport chain. This is where the most ATP production occurs. Here, NADH and FADH2 release electrons, which after a series of steps leads to the production of 32 to 34 ATP molecules. So in theory, we have 2 ATPs from glycolysis, 2 ATPs from the citric acid cycle, and 34 from the electron transport chain, for a total of 38 ATPs produced. However, the actual number is estimated to be between 28 and 30, because some of the processes along the pathway need to use ATP to complete their functions. And so now the path of cellular respiration is complete. So how about other food molecules? Glucose is a simple carbohydrate, and we have seen how it fits into the cellular respiration pathway. But other simple carbohydrates, such as fructose and galactose, can enter the pathway during the glycolysis stage as well. Proteins are made up of amino acids, and most of the time they are not used to produce energy via cellular respiration. However, if the body needs to use amino acids for energy, it can. First, they must have their amino NH2 group removed. Once this is done, different amino acids enter the cellular respiration pathway at different stages. Lipids or fats can also enter the pathway. Triglycerides, the main form of fat, consists of 4 parts: a glycerol unit and 3 fatty acids. The glycerol unit can be modified and enter the pathway in the glycolysis stage, and the fatty acids can be broken down further and enter at the citric acid cycle stage. And folks, that be the basics on cellular respiration.
I just find it funny that they said that's the basics of cellular respiration, and it sounded so complicated.
Well, it is. And I looked at this, and let me just break it down to you just to make sure. And this is why, and there was no other easier way to be able to show that. But here's what I'm going to show it through, like, we all drive a car, okay? Let's look at a car, because your car is doing the same thing. A car mimics what your body does. Okay, the food that we eat is similar to gasoline. So food is equivalent to gasoline that you put in your car. Why? Because in order to make the engine go, you have to feed it, just like your body. If you want to produce energy, you have to feed it. So we eat food so it can be broken down into three different things: carbohydrates, that are good and positive, because that's what the body can burn. Negative carbohydrates are what we call fat. And then also protein. Those are the three main sources that your body burns in order to produce energy. Your good fats, your bad fats are carbohydrates, negative carbohydrates, and then protein. So when you're eating, and you got to see this, because this is why I said about that pyramid, food can be addictive, and it's been promoted that way. How you look at it, and it's remember how our brain works. When you're marketing anything, especially food, they market to the old brain. That means the old brain is your limbic system. It's what you make emotional decisions off of. You see, when you see food, you see Coca-Cola pouring over ice, and it's just bubbling over down. But what you don't see logically is a whole bunch of corn syrup and fructose that doesn't burn through the body, that gets its byproduct, that produces part of the cancer, and that's as a byproduct. So you'll see, and we look at the difference of good carbs and negative bad carbs, why you see the differences of food. Because your body can't, fructose is bad carbs, and that's in most of the sugary things that are produced. Corn syrup is basically fructose. And that's why a couple years ago, they started banning that in food, but they allowed for it for 100 years. So basically, the food is gasoline that you put in your car. Then you also need oxygen, because just like anything, oxygen ignited burns. So you need oxygen with food in order to be able to burn, to produce energy. Just like in your car. If you go ahead and you put gasoline in your car, but you have a dirty air filter, it can go and it can plug and it won't go, because your car needs oxygen regulated with gasoline in order to burn. Okay. And then how do you get that burn? Well, in your body, the food, which gets broken down into carbohydrates. And that's where you get the good carbohydrates versus the bad carbohydrates, and then your proteins. And so just think of it in this way. Good carbohydrates is the best, what your body wants. Your bad carbohydrates is your fructose, sugary stuff, fat, your bad fats. And then you have your protein. Why is that important? What do they say when you want to lose weight? They say increase your good carbs, which is your fruits and vegetables, and decrease your bad carbs, but they also say increase your protein. Why? Because your body burns protein less. It's the last thing it burns. So if you are burning protein, that means your body has exhausted the good carbs and the bad carbs or fat to get to the protein. What is that called that's very popular now? Keto. Going into keto diet, keto effect. It's getting your body to burn as much good carbs, bad carbs, so that it gets to the protein level. So that means you're burning all your fat off. That's the keto effect, to get your body to burn as much fat as possible. And usually it takes you to jumpstart that into that process. That's why you have to dry out all your carbs for the first 2 weeks, because your body's so addicted to it. It's trying to force you, and that's where you get lightheaded and all that. But once you get through that point, your body says, okay, I don't have enough carbs, bad carbs to burn, and you're maintaining the good carbs, so I need more. And if I increase my exercise and increase the protein, I'm going to have to start burning protein. So I got to look for any excess stored fat first to burn, and then I have to go to protein. That's the keto effect, ketosis. And that's how people can lose weight. The problem is you have to maintain that, because once you start replacing and putting back carbs, then your body says, oh, okay, all right, it's given to me now, so I can just utilize that, and it stops that. You plateau. So anytime you're looking at trying to lose weight, you have to increase your protein, increase your fiber, increase your vegetables, and decrease your negative carbs, your bad carbs. That's just the reality. Now, if you diet, you only do that for a certain time. But if you eat nutritiously, you do that, period. And that's one of the things. I've cut out white bread. I've cut out milk. No, not just whole milk. I used to do whole milk, skim milk, and I switched to almond milk. I haven't had almond milk almost a year. And you'll see why. But because those also produce carbs every day. So you have to look at that. But your food gets broken down into carbs, whether it be good carbs, bad carbs, fat, and then your proteins, in order to be able to burn with oxygen. And that's why exercise is important, aerobic, because it helps you be able to take in oxygen much more. When you get, quote, if you're out of breath, walking up the steps, that means you're not getting enough oxygen in your body for the exercise you're putting or the effort you're doing. So you have to do more aerobic activity so your body brings in more oxygen, is able to do that, to burn into energy. So if you have to look at your oxygen, if your oxygen is being inhibited, that's going to affect how you lose weight, how you exercise, and all those different things. But you need food that converts into carbohydrates with oxygen in order to burn. Now, in a car, you got gasoline that you put in with the oxygen coming from the air through the air filter. And then what is in a car that ignites the oxygen with the food to burn? It's your pistons. You know what? Your spark plugs, okay, the spark plugs in your thing, they fire. And the reason they spark and fire is to burn. So the more you step on the gas, the more of the fuel and oxygen is being forced into the engine to go faster, to burn faster. In order to go faster, you have to put more food, more gasoline, more oxygen in to burn. And then the spark plugs fire up. And that when that fires up, that energy and heat starts to turn the engine. In our body, what is that called? The metabolism. Your metabolism. When you say your metabolism slow down, what that's saying is you're not fueling it enough with oxygen and proper energy, carbohydrates, to keep that burning. You're being sedentary. So you need to eat better and do more aerobic activity for your metabolism to stay up. The older we get, the lazier we get. So our metabolism slows down. So we come off the gas pedal. That's why you have to exercise a little bit more. Stay more active more. That's why the Fitbit and the Apple Watch, they try to get you at least every hour to move at least 1 minute or do 250 steps, because that keeps that metabolism going so it doesn't get settled down, which requires less energy and carbohydrates. Because if you're still taking in the same level of carbohydrates and eating the same level of food with your metabolism going down, what happens? That carbohydrates get stored as fat. Cortisol. So that's why you have to have the proper nutrition and food levels with the amount of activity you have. Then you see the food and air coming in, turns into carbohydrates that gets burned. And then that carbohydrate gets kind of synthesized into what we call glucose, which is basically a form of how the cell can then be able to burn that sugar or that food you've been eating. It's just another stage of breaking food with oxygen down into burnable form, glucose. But that's where we recognize when people have diabetes, what they're saying is that glucose that's being produced is too much in their system. So the cells aren't being able to respond, because that's what insulin does in your cell, breaks that glucose down in order to burn. If you don't have enough insulin, because kidneys, liver, all help break down and produce insulin in your cells. If you don't have that, you become diabetic, you're not producing enough insulin to break down that carbohydrate into glucose so your cell can be absorbed. What happens? It leaks out and doesn't go into the cell that is supposed to be for energy. It leaks into your body, into your bloodstreams, and you get diabetes. Diabetes is too much sugar in your body system that's not converting into energy and burning out. It's just being flooded. So that's why you have, your sugar levels go up. That's diabetic. So that's why when they talk about diabetes, to deal with it, nutrition and exercise is one of the first things they try to get you to do, so you can burn that excess carbohydrates in your system. So you're not bringing in too much bad carbs that get stored automatically anyway. You bring in good carbs that can get into your cells, and then you can also burn it off by exercise. So glucose and all that is what gets converted to be able to finally produce ATP is energy. So the ATP you saw on that is energy. But what also happens in a car, that as you burn, you put the gasoline in, you got the oxygen, you're sparking with the spark plugs, and it's burning and it's turning that, and then it heats up. The pressure in the engine heats up, and then that starts turning the engine, which gets you to move, which is metabolism, which is why you can blow out an engine, because it's turning. Then you need oil to lubricate it, so because you got metal parts grinding and all that. And that's why exercise, stress, yoga, all those things are helpful to our body, because that allows our body become lubricated. So you don't get stiff, you don't tear muscles, because your body then with energy starts being in motion. But what's another, and this is important to understand then when we talk about cancer and all this other stuff, so you produce energy, but what else do you do? What does your car do when you start moving? What else does your car do? And why do you have a pipe in the back of your car from your muffler? Because that is exhaust that goes out. One of the byproducts of energy production is carbon dioxide, or what we call exhaust. It's bad. You can't breathe it, because that's the negative part. So your body produces carbon dioxide in the energy process. And this is where we get into the potential of cancer, because there are molecules in your body that need to be released. And that's what we call free radical molecules. the free radicals that you hear about, that gets produced in your cellular structure from energy, and that's supposed to come out of the cell so that it can go through the rest of your body and out of you, because that's a byproduct. But what happens is if it gets trapped in your cell and can't get out of that membrane, it becomes cancerous and starts breaking your body down. So that's why we talk about antioxidants. Antioxidants against oxidants. Oxidants is the bad byproduct, free radicals. So that's why certain supplements and food are help with antioxidants, because it helps get that free radical out of the cell so they can exhaust out your body. And one of the supplements that we want to talk about, and I mentioned it last time, that helps in that is selenium. Selenium, that helps get that free radical out of your cellular so that you can get out of your body. So if you exercise a lot, then you're producing more exhaust. You need to release that through your cell. And your body makes that, but if you exercise more and increase your metabolism more, then you need to be able to help your body out. And that's why I wanted to go over how your cell takes food, converts it into carbohydrates, and breaks that down so that it can be able to do energy. If you understand that, then you can understand the dieting to why you need to go from dieting to nutrition. Because if you just keep in a diet mode, that's the same thing as running a car until the engine blows up. I'm going to give what it needs to, but I'm not going to maintain everything else around it. Then all of a sudden, what good is putting gasoline in a car, but you don't change the oil, the air filter, or you don't put oil in and get oil filling so your body can, it will run. Then eventually, the engine freezes up. What happens when your engine freezes up in your body? We call it a stroke, heart attack. Because the body, your heart hasn't been able to exercise much, so it starts breaking down. Blood vessels aren't working right. All those different things. You get clogged up with byproduct, glucose that hasn't been processed, diabetes. So all these illnesses can be triggered by the result of nutrition and exercise for the most part, just like a car breaking down. Any questions before we go on to deal with a little bit more of these? Okay. Now, let's look at great carbs, good carbs, bad carbs. And this is important. This is why I wanted to make sure we understand how our cell turns food into energy. Because depending upon how your body looks at it as a carbohydrate determines whether it gets burned properly or stored as fat or become negative, even worse. And you see how stress, if it's negative and you deal with it through eating, how it can go out of hand. Or you don't exercise and you need to exercise. It's be great to eat, but if you don't exercise properly too, you're not doing the full aspect of getting best for your body. And if your body's not in good health, then your mind can't be in health, because your mind is just another organ. And it can affect you. And if your mind's not in good health, you can't make proper decisions for life or for your business. So let's take some time just to look at what are some good carbs. Once again, you look at your vegetables. Vegetables, and you remember the food pyramid. Vegetables are on the bottom and fruits are on the bottom because they are the best to eat, because they have the best carbs to be broken down for your body. And they always say it, when I was looking at training, weightlifting and bodybuilding and all that, and you had to increase your protein, they also said, eat as much vegetables as you want and reduce your carbs for this very reason, because you still have to have energy to continue to exist. But the carbs these carbs of greens and vegetables are the best to be able to produce that energy and not have the negative byproduct as other carbs will have. And you have to start, and the one thing I had to start looking at is food is energy. not food for pleasure. If you get into that food for pleasure, going from the limbic perspective, and you're going to be emotionally eating, and that's going to have a negative effect on you. So your great carbs, greens, vegetables, and your natural fruit. Then you get into some good carbs, which you want to balance out, but you don't want to have them solely. The great carbs, you can eat as much as you want all the time. When we get into good carbs, you have to balance them out. And that's your starchy vegetable, sweet potatoes and potatoes. Those are good carbs. Now, sweet potatoes are a little bit better than the regular white potatoes, but sweet potatoes, these are good carbs. Now, you can't have it all the time because, once again, carbs that don't get burned into your system and transfer into energy get stored as fat. And these carbs, good carbs, can get stored as fat a little bit easier than the great carbs. So you do want to have, so I do eat sweet potatoes. I do eat some regular potatoes. But here's the difference, though. What good is eating a regular potato and sweet potato? You're going to put brown sugar on, and you're going to put, see, and all this other stuff on. You're just putting bad carbs onto good carbs and making good carbs bad. Sweeter fruits. It's good, some sweeter fruits, like I said, bananas, pineapples, all those. But once again, you don't want to, have those too much because of how your body processes energy. Because if you produce eating more of these good carbs than your great carbs, your body's going to burn those first. And if those are the things you like, and you're eating more of it, and it doesn't get through that, then the great carbs are going to get stored as fat. And then the excess good carbs are going to get stored as fat. And forget about the bad carbs, and they're just going straight to your fat cells. They don't get processed. Yes, you know.
Okay, so I have a question in regards to the great carb versus good carbs. Now, based the information that you're giving me, is this, when you say like it's how it's breaking down, is that based on someone who's having like a sedentary lifestyle where they're not actively working out and stuff? Because I know that, when people are trying to like build muscle, and I know you have done that in the past, one of the biggest things is to eat, whole wheat, like for the bad carbs, like brown rice and whole wheat bread, like those grains and stuff like that. Is that still considered a bad carb, even though
the whole wheat grains are good carbs?
Okay.
When you get into the bad carbs of those grains, those are typically the white grains.
Gotcha.
That's the distinction. I used to eat brown rice, sweet potatoes. Those are things I would balance off. Mm-hmm. But I stayed away from the white. There's sometimes I would even eat a little bit of white rice, especially if I was real leaning out and I was like all woozy and didn't have no energy. I would do it. I'll eat some white rice around lunchtime, so it gives some time for it to burn throughout the night. Those type of things. But yeah, you still if I do any grains, it's whole wheat. Spaghetti is whole wheat, pasta whole wheat. If I don't even eat bread, but when I was eating bread, it was wheat bread. So I moved from wheat bread I moved from white bread to wheat bread, and now I don't even eat bread for the most part.
Okay, because the chart, it just said grains, so I was just like, are they saying?
Yeah, those are more the white and rich grains for the most part.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You have good carbs that are your whole wheats, type, your oats, those type of things. Mm-hmm. You still want to have that in not too much though, because once again, it's still not a great carb.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then when you get into the bad carbs, this is tough, but it gotta be only rarely. I used to eat desserts almost every day before. That you can't, because your body then is, for the most part, that's just going right to fat. It's just going right to fat. So all the exercise you're doing is being counteractive to the fact of what you're eating. And the other thing that I learned in the past, which is something that you have to understand, which is why sometimes you have to go into the keto effect to burn rest, so your body searches for any carbs that it can burn off first, is because when you create a fat cell, it doesn't go away. You can shrink fat cells, but they don't go away. So if you're just storing and becoming fat and fat, it's not like, that's why people get liposuction and all that stuff, because fat cells just don't go away. They can shrink. But if you keep having these bad carbs that get stored, you got to do more and more work to be able to have your body burn existing existing carbs. Because if it gets stored in fat, it's not like, all right, fat cells just don't go away. So let's look at some of these bad carbs, like what we talked about, some of the white and rich grains, like white rice, spaghetti, your breads, rolls, those are the worst. And if you want grains, I suggest substituting them with whole wheat. Here's the other thing that's a myth. These energy drinks, Powerade, Gatorade. I use those, but I use the non-sugar versions. Most people get the sugary versions. They have more sugar than pop. So if you're going to get into these energy drinks, you got to be non-sugar, or you're defeating your purpose. And even that, you got to watch out, because some of the stuff that they put in for sugar replacements of chemicals is bad for you. Because once again, it's chemicals. And anytime you have chemicals in your body that don't get exhausted out of your cell right, it becomes exhaust. And if it's trapped in, it can convert into cancer. And then also donuts, cakes, cookies, those are just bad carbs to begin with, period. Your body looks at that and like, right into the fat. It'll go right into fat. Because why? There's a lot of fuels, but your car, if it's meant to burn gasoline, can't burn kerosene. It can burn for a kerosene heater, but we don't drive around with a kerosene heater, because kerosene is a less quality fuel than the gasoline you put in your car. It's no different than the food you're putting into your body. Certain things will get your car in the hiccup mode when you have that bad gas. Same thing with your body. Vitamins and supplements. I utilize vitamins and supplements. We're going to talk about them on the back end of this, but the one thing that you have to understand, and it's the same thing with vaccinations. Because remember, vaccinations is, look what we're doing with this corona. They have a way of having a dead part of this disease get into your body so that your cells start recognizing it as bad and produce antibodies to fight it. But that bad part of corona that they're delivering into your body has to be delivered on something. That's a vaccination. So that's why they have to put vaccinations with something else to be able to get your body to absorb it so it can react. It's the same thing with your food. There are things that if you're not getting the right, proper, good carbs, the vegetables, because vegetables have certain things in it, vitamins and minerals and nutritions in it, you can supplement it. And that's the purpose of vitamin supplement, but you got to look at it, because you can't just pop a vitamin in, because typically if you read the label, it says should eat with a meal, should eat with food. Reason is because those vitamins that you take through a pill has to be tied into food, because they get absorbed at the same time. Your food allows your body, the cell allows that into itself. Think about it. The food is a key to get into your cell. So if you're taking vitamins and supplements because you can't get them naturally, then if you're eating it with food, a meal, it opens up your cellular door so that those vitamins can get in and help process. So if you're just taking pills just to take pills and you're not doing it properly, you're just peeing it out, because it's a byproduct. When I say the exhaust for your body is your lower part of your body, front and back. That's the muffler pipe coming out of your body. If you look at a car, I'm telling you, the car was built like a body. And that's how it operates. So if you're taking these vitamin supplements, I'm just going to take it, people just take it, but don't understand how it operates, it's just passing through your system. So you got to make sure you do it right. So my trainer taught me beforehand, if you're going to supplement, you only should be supplement because food is priority first. You want to get your body into food first. You use vitamins and supplements because of your body. Maybe you can't eat a certain thing or whatever, and then you can supplement it. Or if we don't live like near the beach and all that, we can't get vitamin D right, then you have to supplement with vitamin D because vitamin D affects cortisol and melatonin. Because remember, light helps you to break down cortisol into melatonin so you can sleep, and then it converts it back in the morning with light so that it raises it back up so you can get active again. Vitamin D is one of the minerals and supplements that help you with that, what light produces. So sometimes when people live in Alaska, they have to supplement with a light and things like that. That's important. But you also might want to supplement with vitamin D too, if it affects you. So, but supplements not to be a replacement, it's to enhance the food that you're eating. And that's why I like this chart, because you can look at certain supplements and what foods can do the same thing. Iron is helpful for burning energy. So if you're low in iron, you need that to help produce and burn energy. It's like a starter for a fire. You know, you have the little kindling wood that you light up first with the paper underneath, it gets that going, and then you put the big logs on. That's what iron does. It helps you get that cellular process starting so that it can burn and get your metabolism kicking in. So if you're low in iron, then you need to supplement. Now you can supplement with food, red meats, it's talking about spinach, there's some greens that you can do it to help all that. Now, I don't eat red meat. So that's where, if I wanted to, I can supplement with spinach. And I love spinach. But if you can't, then you want to supplement with an iron pill. But I always prefer food over supplements and vitamins. Calcium the same way. I don't drink milk, but I supplement with calcium. Vitamin C. Once again, oranges, kiwis, grapefruits. I can't take grapefruits because it'll affect my blood pressure medicine, but oranges, orange juice, and then you can supplement. Vitamin D, we just talked about that. Eggs, cod liver oil, salmon. I love salmon. Those are sources of food that you can have for vitamin D or supplement. But once again, if you look at the priority, just like our body prefers good carbs, worse carbs, protein in order to burn. Your body wants food first versus vitamins and supplements. And this is why I don't like our industry, United States, because of how they can regulate the food and trick the legislators to get and to make the food pyramid reverse, make us eat bad stuff first. Whereas in Europe, they're much more about health and wellness, exercise. They rather eat first versus supplement. And finally, let's look at some of these supplements and what they can do for you. For the most part, most of these I do take. There's only one I don't take, but these are most I take daily. Vitamin C, that helps with your immune system. So as we talk about the coronavirus and all that, and everyone talks about this and that and the vaccination, the bottom line is a vaccination is a supplement for being healthy. Priority should be being healthy and not being nasty. Wash your hands. Stop coughing all over the place. Don't go, if you're sick, spreading it out to everybody else. But everyone wants to just get the quick fix. Be healthy. So vitamin C helps with you being healthy. B12s help with energy in the nervous system. D3 helps with bones and immune system. Selenium, this is what I talked about. When you're doing exercise and helping that byproduct get out of your system, it helps with antioxidant, which is your free radicals that can produce cancer. So it helps that free radical to be released and exhausted out of your body, selenium. Biotin, that helps with your hairs, nails, skin. So how many women love going to the salon to do with the outward stuff, but don't deal with the inner stuff that helps grow hair and all that? I'm telling you how our country looks at stuff. Milk thistle, that helps with liver. Remember, liver is important for byproduct and waste that go out your body, but it also is good for producing insulin that regulates your energy production. Echinacea, that is good for your immune system to help out with the vitamin C and all that, help boost your immune system. Fish oil is good for your heart. And here's the other one that I have. I have herniated discs that I go to a chiropractor. I'm on maintenance, but I also don't want surgery where those herniations could cause bone on bone. So I have to be careful on that. I have to be exercised. That's why stretching, exercise is important to keep that flexibility. So do that. But I also take glucosamine conjoined MSM daily. And you can only take that if you're not allergic to seafood, because that's basically grind up seafood into that you put in your body, and it helps with your joints. It helps replace your joints. And this is important too when you have people that have scoliosis and they're bent over because of spinal. What happens is they're not getting enough of supplements through your food to be able to replace out their bone and the bone density. So your body starts eating itself. And that's where they bend over, because their bone spinal column is under attack by their own body. Or if you have joint problems because of bone on bone or herniated discs and things like that, to help replace that so that it doesn't keep breaking down as much or slow down that process, I take glucosamine conjoined MSM. And it takes about a week or so to get into your body for your body to start adjusting, but you can tell the difference. If I come off of that, I get much more intense on my back pain and stiffen up. Coenzym Q10, that's for heart and blood vessels. So for strokes, heart attacks, and all that, to help with your heart and processing, that is something I take every day because of the high blood pressure, because of my blood vessels need to expand to be able to release that pressure. So I take that to help out with that. Multivitamin, I put that on there because I basically use a multivitamin to stack it with these other vitamins. And when I mean stack, it's multivitamins typically can go over a period of time throughout the day if you take them properly, so that your body has it available when it's processing. If it needs it, oh, okay, let me take it when it needs it. So it's in there. But the best way to take vitamins is separately with food. So that's why I take a multivitamin to stack it, to have it go throughout the day so it's available depending upon when the body needs it. But I purposely take vitamins that I want into my body separately. Turmeric for inflammation. Because I only have one kidney and I can't take any anti-inflammatories, I have to look at other ways to supplement when I have sore muscles and things like that, or I have my bones on bones or my back or whatever needs an anti-inflammatory. I take turmeric. That's a good anti-inflammatory that helps with that. Zinc helps with cold, flu, and sleep as a mineral. Iron helps with burning energy. Melatonin, sleep. Ginkgo biloba, that helps with memory, processing your memory. And then ginger, which I like too, that I take, is for inflammation. Once again, I can't take what's some of the types of, that help with anti-inflammatories that you take? I forget it because it's been years I've not been able to take it. So you know, when you can just pop it in when you have a sore muscle, you want to reduce that. Well, I take turmeric and ginger for that. Questions?
I have questions, but I don't know if Sister Ernestine got questions. I've been asking questions all day.
Well, this is time. I'm finished with the presentation, so this is the time for questions.
Okay, I have three.
Okay.
You made mention in the presentation that you used to drink, and they were more kind of personal about what your preferences.
Yeah.
But you said that you used to, you no longer drink almond milk. Why is that?
That was not even a conscious decision. I purposely didn't. I purposely didn't want to drink milk, whole milk, because it's fattening. And also, when I went over to Europe, one of the doctors over there, when we had a session with them, this is why I learned about a lot of European lifestyle. And when I was over in Germany, the doctor said, "You Americans are so foolish. You all want to just take pills instead of just live life." Exercise, bike, eat right, all that stuff. And she was like, and look at the elements that you all have. And a lot of your elements are due to inflammation. Cancer is a result of inflammation in your body. High blood pressure, inflammation. So a lot of that's for inflammation. And then what they studied is a lot of inflammation is your body allergic reaction to what you're eating or taking in. So that's why she said, one of the things that when someone comes to them and they do analysis, a lot of the things they said, first thing they look at, if they're taking milk, they'll look at that, because typically in an adult, humans are the only ones in the animal kingdom that drink milk after they've been a child. Any other animal ceases with milk when they become adult. And because of that, because of the properties in it, your body can become inflamed with it. So I purposely got out of just whole milk and started going into almond milk then, because I still wanted milk for my cereal.
Right.
But then when I started, and I didn't even realize until just recently, I stopped almond milk for almost a year. I just stopped getting it. And the reason is because I would get my almond milk for my cereal. Now I was using some whole grain cereals, but there was some enriched white cereal, and cereal was bad carbs. So I said, I don't want that bad carb. So I stopped eating regular cereal. I eat Greek yogurt with grains now that I'll pour oats and vanilla and nuts in. That's what I typically eat as my cereal now. And I learned that in Germany. That's what they do. So my breakfast is not cereal, it's Greek yogurt with granola and all that. And so I don't, it's not like I have anything against almond. If I had to use milk, I would use almond.
Right.
But I don't.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, because you eliminated the cereal, which means that you don't no longer need the milk anymore. So
yeah.
Okay. The list. Do you take the list? The last list of vitamins that you had on there, it had like 17. 17 of those. Now, is those like when you say you do all of those, are you taking them in vitamin form, or are these the things that you make sure that you have in your diet every day through various foods?
Both. I take them in vitamin form every day, and then I also try to make sure my food is in there. So I'm doing a mix, both.
Okay.
Now,
Can I piggyback? Like expensive.
Yeah. What's that, Chanel?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking because like the list of 17. So I know like vitamin C, turmeric, ginger, the iron, and all of that. I know that, you know, those are things just like the list you presented beforehand. Like those are things that you can get in food.
Yes.
But like biotin, milk thistle, fish oil, I often see those in stores in the vitamin form and everything. But it would just seem like it would be very pricey to, you know, keep up with that
on a monthly. It is
on a monthly basis. So you know, because we use vitamins at home. We do the elderberry, the multivitamins and everything, and that alone is pricey. So just kind of getting more information on how to integrate it in our daily life with food is very informative versus the vitamin form.
I agree. If you can get it in food, it's good. But I do both, and I spend about $100 a month on vitamins.
Goodness. Okay. Yeah.
Because once again, I was spending $100 a month on junk food and to my body. So it's once in that mindset. But Yeah, I just do that because the sooner as I can progress in my life and I get real more tested, I might be able to wean out some. Like I wean out, I don't take iron anymore because I'm burning enough energy. Because when I go to my doctor, I get lab results twice a year, and he says, you know, he's looking at my red blood count is below a little bit, and I think that's you know, but I was supplementing with iron. He says that iron is not going to affect your red blood count, so I stopped taking that. You know, stop taking that.
Okay.
But he says continue to exercise because the exercise will help with that. But he says it could just be genetic, and because one of the things they look at is to make sure that that no cancer's in my body if they're seeing that red blood cell drop. That's what alarms him. But he said he's been with me for my whole life, and he says it's been consistent. So that's just who you are. If it drops below your current foundation, then we'll have an issue with that. So I dropped iron out of my supplement, and I don't eat red meat, so that's the other thing what I was concerned with.
Okay. And my last question is the vitamin supplement list that you had, like what you had when it said heart, what's an appeal in the vitamin supplements and how much you're eating, what's needed milligrams per day. Is that for an adult or is that for, you know, children as well?
That's for adults, but what I would say is there are holistic specialists that I would refer people to. Well, they will analyze you and they'll say, you're slow on this, and you need this, you need that, you need that. But this more so is for an adult, just a generality. But depending upon who you are, that's a difference. And that's the key. I mean, this is general, but you need to be able to go to your own doctor or go to a holistic nutrition to get more specifically. Well, they'll do analysis for you because your body types are different. Like my body type, my doctor monitors me twice a year because I only have one kidney, but he looks at certain things. And then, like he said, your iron's low, but that is consistent with who you are. So that's okay. The other thing that he looks at too is, I mean, I'm trying to bring my BMI, my body mass index down. Because typically if it's over, if it's over 30, then you're supposed to be obese, fat. However, mine stays around 30, 32. And that's because I'm lifting, and my doctor recognizes that. Now I still want to get that below 30, but I'm doing it naturally. But I also have to understand I'm going to reduce muscle to do that. Because of my muscles, I'm higher in a BMI than typical person on my same size and weight. So he recognizes that, but he's been with me for that period of time to see that. Now, when my weight got up to like 230, he's like, oh, you need to drop that. And I dropped it down to 210.
Okay.
So my goal is to 205, but even at 205, I'm over 30 in BMI. So I'm still fat for the standard. But when you know me and I work with me, I'm good and I can run miles. So it's, you know, an exercise. So once again, this is just standard, but you got to be able to take this and work with your own professionals to get to where you need to be personally.
Understood. Those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Ernestine.
Okay, so 2 slides. This slide, just to clarify, so take, for example, vitamin D, and it's saying like 2.5 mcgs. It's not indicating, it's basically saying 2.5 large eggs or 1 tablespoon of cod liver oil or 100 grams. It's not all of them together.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, just making sure.
Correct.
Okay, and cod liver, like, ugh. Okay, in the next slide with all the vitamins on it, you had mentioned that that you stack them. So you take them in the morning and then you add on as needed. What did you mean by that?
Oh, well, see, when you stack, it's kind of like a drug dealer or type things. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Remember, you're talking about 24-hour period of time. It's just like your medication. You remember when sometimes you take medication, like, and they say you take Tylenol every 4 hours. Okay. Because they say that what I've given you for the first pill is only for 4 hours. But if you want to last for the full 20 hours, then you have to do it every 4 hours. That's stacking. Okay. Well, you can stack different ways. If you look at your multivitamin, you know, sometimes you have to look at the direction. And this is the other thing. Sometimes you don't get enough or you're taking too much. The directions will tell you. Like, for instance, I have a certain sport multivitamin that I take that has more, it even has amino acids and all these other things because of the energy. So, but that says take it twice a day with meals. Okay, so that's stacking it twice a day. If I only just take it one time, it's not going to be effective when it says take it twice a day. Sometimes for a multivitamin that says 3 times a day with meals. So that's what I mean stacking. You have to take it with the direction over the period of time that your body needs it, okay? And then the other part of the stacking is like when you have spikes, like I exercise most of my time in the morning. So even though I'm taking a multivitamin, I'm exercising more than what that multivitamins are just for typical people. But if you're sitting there blowing out an hour and a half workout, most people don't do that. So you're burning much more energy. So you need much more. So that's when you stack it. And so when I get ready to work out in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 in the morning, depending upon, I will take a multivitamin, but then I will take most of these other things too. I'll take some vitamin C. I'll take it because I'm taking vitamin C probably, once a day or twice a day or 3 times a day. So when you exercise, your body pulls on food. So you need much more, just like stepping on the gas pedal. You need to give it more food. So then I'll stack more energy type supplements on top of that because I know my body's going to start using it. Now, if I'm not going to work out that day, I'm not going to take much more in addition on top of that. But then there's times where if you're working hard throughout, a 10-hour day, 12-hour day, going, you need to make your supplements. Sometimes you need to take them 3 times a day or 2 times a day or whatever. And that's stacking it through the day also. But your body processes things better if it's isolated versus it in with a mixture of stuff because it can break it down faster if it's isolated. So the vitamin C taken separately gets broken down quicker by your body than vitamin C that's in a multivitamin.
That makes sense. I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Oh.
All right, Adam, I'm sorry. I had one more question based on the stacking analogy you gave. So is that, this is like a very simple example, but for example, when you are working out and they say in order for you to gain 1 pound a week, you need to eat 2,800 calories. But then when you add in the exercise that you put in there, let's say you do 60 minutes of weightlifting. Now, in order for you to gain a pound, it has went up to 3,100
yes.
calories. Is that the
Correct.
exact same thing in regards to the stacking?
Yes, exactly. And it's the same thing with protein. When I was bodybuilding, and I was walking around with 240, around 230, 240. Okay. I was eating what they said at that time, what I had to, my trainer said was you have to eat enough grams of protein equal to your body weight. So if I wanted to be, and I was cutting down from 230 down to 200, I would do that. So I was trying to target on 200 pounds. So I would have to eat 200 grams of protein. Now, the problem with that, now that I'm not doing that, is because this goes back with addiction. You have to reverse yourself out. That's why it has to take time to reverse back out. Now that I'm not, you still want to eat more protein than carbs. That's why I monitor that. You don't lose weight if your carbs are higher than your protein.
Right.
So you have to have more protein than carbs. So you want to monitor that, but it also depends on your exercise. I'm not lifting as heavy now. I'm using bands for maintenance, and I'm doing more aerobic activity. So my protein count can come down somewhat because I'm not converting and taking as much amino acids and protein to convert that to muscle. So that's, once again, it's basically taking the supplements and all this as you need it based upon your activity. The older you get, the less energy you need typically. And that's why you have to eat differently. Well, that's why young people can eat candy and everything else that they want, but because their metabolism is burning quicker. But the older they get, typically start slowing down. So you got to adjust your food intake, your calories, but it's the same thing. If you want to put on weight and you're a skinny meanie, you got to lift because you want to build muscle mass. So it means you got to increase protein, increase your good carbohydrates because you're going to be burning more energy. Because you're burning more energy. When you look at 30 minutes of aerobic and 30 minutes of lifting, you will burn more energy with 30 minutes of lifting. Because not only your heart rate being constant during that period of time, but afterwards your muscles are still firing and burning. So you're burning more, so you have to produce more calories if you want to maintain muscle or size. It's all a chemistry experiment type that goes on in your body. But stacking is a couple of things. It's prolonging the nutrition over a period of time when your body's able to get it when it needs it. At the same time, when you peak up, you want to also peak up the supplements and all that. That's why when you work out, when I was lifting, I would take a mass builder protein that had amino acids, vitamins, all these other things that was stacked in there too for that period of time. Now, when I do my workouts, I don't do mass builders. I do regular protein shakes because I don't need all that because I'm not trying to build mass anymore. I'm trying to maintain. And it takes your body to get used to all that, you know, from when you go from one place to the other. Same with food. I used to have a lot of proteins and steaks and all that. Then you convert it, you know, to turkey and chicken. And now I'm moving more to fish because I really want to become pescatarian. So I do a lot more of salmon, tuna, you know, shrimp on my salads.
And those actually have a very high grams of protein as well, the shrimp.
Exactly,
salmon,
plus zinc.
stuff like that. I know, like chicken, an 8-ounce thing of chicken is 70 grams, but if you do 6 ounces of shrimp, that's about 50. So you can, I mean, you can actually get more out of seafood, protein out of seafood if you do like 9 ounces, 10 ounces, you know, versus 8 ounces of steak.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And all those different things make it valuable to you. My thing was pushing people just to try and be different and don't look at food for pleasure. Look food for energy. That's a mindset shift that has to take place. That's attitude. That's one of the first things you have to do when you're dealing with nutrition. And it goes back to what you were saying. I spend $100 a month on supplements. But I was spending $100 a month on ho-hos and cookies and cakes and potato chips. You have to invest in yourself, exercise. You know, this is what I tell you, it's about loving ourselves. If I'm running around for other people to make sure they're happy, you got to do that for yourself too. If you spend 4 hours for other people, you need to be spending this time for yourself. Else it becomes offside, unequal. And then you get into depression, anger, bitterness, all these other things. Any other questions that you have?
No, but this is an excellent series. I definitely have been enjoying it over the past few months.
Now, that brings us up to next month is supposed to be the final part of this Loving Myself series where we're going to deal with the strengths. So one of the things that I advise you to do is there's a book called Strength Finders out there that you can get that has the test, you know, electronic test. I advise everyone to do it and take it. I've taken it twice. And it's good because it breaks you down to what are your big things of who you are, what you like to do, and what you would be more inclined to do. So I want people to read that. We'll go over that the next time in March 13th. And then afterwards, I want to start moving the series into actually business now. We spent time developing ourselves because I said that's the first thing we have to understand is who we are, know ourselves, our triggers of things, getting ourselves ready. Because I don't want us to go into business and having heart attack, strokes, and going crazy because we didn't do the first part. Because the studies have proven that a lot of people dying of heart attacks, strokes, unhealthy, don't eat properly, and cancer, all these other things. So we did the first part. Now I want to get into those who are entrepreneurs that really want to do and build their business. So I'm starting to get topics for what we want to go over. There's 2 topics I want to go over as we get into the business part that we would look at starting. Understanding financials is 1. 2, starting a business. What are some of the things you want to do in starting a business? And then one of the other things is what are the different business entities? Why should I start either sole proprietor, LLC, partnership, corporation, all those different things, and understanding the legal and tax consequences of that, business entities. And then, starting a business too is one of the things I had a person that was going to do a consult, and I got one coming up on Monday evening, a consult with a group who does counseling. And I did a presentation. They wanted me to go ahead and do a consult with them so they can be able to build their business a little bit. And the thing that people do backwards is they jump into starting a business without understanding who they are, what their market is, what the things they want to get into, and they got the thing set up, but they put the cart before the horse. And so I want to try to spend some time in developing those things so we can make proper. And that gets me into the fourth thing, is a business plan. Most people want to get into business, but they don't understand that they have to have a business plan for 3 to 5 years laid out of what they want to do, how they're going to market, where they're going to be at, so that they can start building their structure and building it right and have a way of operating into the future. And so those are 4 topics that I know that I've been experiencing with people over the years. Are there anything that you all would want to look at as you build your business and all that you want to go over?
I think something surrounding like hiring.
Hiring?
Yeah, the types of people, the process, how to go about doing it. What type of people should you be looking for concerning what you're trying to sell, things of that nature? Will they have your heart in order to be able to?
That's a good point, because there's 3 of my clients now looking for key individuals that they can't find. And it's impacting their business operations for the future and strategic. And you're right. And over the years, I've learned different personality profiles, different process and things that you can do to help minimize. Because when you get a wrong person in, that negatively affects you, it takes time away and all that. And a lot of times what I see is people do emotional hiring, and that always blows up. Family.
That's a understanding. That's a really, really good topic, because I think about that often in regards to, later on hiring. And my concern is that I know there's laws against, not hiring people due to certain things, but you do want a specific person, that fits your goal and what, I mean? Like for me in the fitness business, and I know we'll talk about this later, but my thing is like, I personally feel as if that anybody's working in a certain arena where, outwards, you should look the part. That's just my personal opinion, So,
Right.
even though you may have a personal training, certification and everything like that, I mean, I honestly don't want to hire you if you don't look fit,
Right.
So that's a great topic, because that is my concern in hiring people. You may have all the certifications and everything, but you're not applying it to your own life because you're out of state.
I agree. You don't want to go and buy a car from a person that has a broken down car. But there's ways that you can get around that. See, the thing about discrimination is it doesn't say that you can't have choice. You just have to be consistent with that choice. And so there are a lot of my clients are looking for financial personnel, but when we get to a certain level, I mean, there's things and processes that you can work for. Like there's 3 levels of hiring process that you can go through to be able to work through and squeeze people out without being discriminatory. I mean, there's personality testing, there's motivational interviewing. Those are things that we'll talk about. And then there's also technical and tactical testing and skills that you have to do. For instance, one of the things that we're doing now with accounting personnel is we're going to be issuing a accounting test. Because just because they say they can do accounting and they got a degree doesn't mean for the complexity of what I'm seeing out there, they can handle it. So what we have to do is that you have to introduce that at a certain time and be consistent. You can't test one person on stage 2 and test another person stage 3 and another person stage 1. That's discriminatory. But you can issue a test. So there's things that we can talk about in that will be able to help with that, because I agree with you. You have to be, because right now everyone's too happy. I got sued from a person just through an interview. We just went through an interview and said, we're not going to move them on. And she sued me for racial discrimination. She was African-American. I'm African-American, just through an interview. So we
Right.
want it, but we had to take that all the way up for 2 years through legal.
Mhm.
So if you can do certain things, and then doing behavior tests, there's certain tests that will be thrown out, but there's certain tests that I've used in the past that won't be thrown out legally, because as long as you use them consistently, they've been proven and already tested through the legal system. And that's, I refer to it as the predictive index. That's a good way of doing behavior analysis on people. And then you can create a profile on what you need, so you can screen people out from that profile without asking them specifically. You can sit there and have someone take the same test, but have different personalities profile. Because you're right. If you're a person that's on TV, that's going to be on motivating people, that's a different personality than the person who's working the camera. So you can screen for those type of things, being consistent with what you're doing. The problem is that you sit there and say, well, you look bubbly, but you don't. Then you get yourself set up. But hey, take this personality test that, and you take this personality test. And you don't use those as the number one factor, but that is to enhance what you're trying to decide based on other things. And then you look at motivational interviewing, the way that you go about how you interview people, because most people just ask the yes or no type of things. That's what HR professionals do. But you want to get into motivational. It goes back to like when we were pledging. If you were a bowl of cereal, what type of cereal would you be? Type of stuff. You think that's corny, but it will give you some insight of how people process different things.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
that's an excellent topic, Sister Ernestine. That's something I would like to learn about.
Okay. That's
Another one I was thinking about that just kind of like, I was just sitting here thinking there's two things like, most folks start out like probably in their homes, but then you want to branch out to like a location. All the laws, the biggest fear is not to be like zoning laws and what you can and cannot do in certain areas.
Well, that goes underneath business planning.
Okay.
This is what I see in business a lot, which is where I do my business advisory services.
Mm-hmm.
In construction, what do they say in construction? They say measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
Why? Because you don't want to spend $10 on a beam, cut it, and then it's short. Then you have to go and spend another $10.
Right.
Okay. But why don't we do that when we start our business? I'm telling you, that's where I see the most of what my goal and my purpose is with people with business, because people are emotionally, because you have to have the emotional to kind of keep going, but you have to have a fundamental infrastructure to really last. See, dieting is emotional. Nutrition is lifestyle. And that's the same thing with business. You get in it, you get hyped. Yeah, I'm a boss. I'm a boss. I get to do my own things. Then when you have to pay that insurance bill for yourself because you've been working for someone, they paid it for you. And then when you have to sit there and have to spend time, you got to spend time to actually invoice people out because you don't just get a paycheck. When this client says, okay, I'm getting ready to start. I'm ready. Oh yeah, good. I got this client coming. Oh no, I'm going to delay it for a month. Well, money's coming in. That's why I try to tell people before you start your business, spend the money to develop a business plan. Because when you do a business plan, you got to say, where my location? What are the factors in getting it? Let me take the time to research. It might take 6 months to a year to get that stuff ready. But people say, I want to start my business. Well, then you get in there and say, oh, I got the zoning law. Well, if you would have filed and did the research and applied and get that, then you would have known you had to get this permit. You had to get this license. You had to get this. But people rush into it. That's why I say the business plan is part of what will deal with that, because you got to say, what's my business structure going to be? Is it going to be LLC, sole proprietor, partnership, corporation? That has to be part of your business plan. Who's going to be in my operations? What employees? Oh, how am I going to pay them? Do I have a setup to even pay employees? Let me say, who I'm going to do that. How about accounting? Who's going to do the tax? All that is in a business plan. And that way, if you do that you have a document that can be as an organizational strategic plan for you over a period of time that you can follow and map out, then you can prove, hey, I'm going to need $300,000 because it's going to take 3 years before I start earning the profit to support myself. So how do I go to the bank, or how do I leverage this $300,000? People don't even realize that. They go, all right, here, all right. Oh, I need to live by myself. Okay, I need to replace my salary, and okay, so that's $60,000, and then I got to pay taxes, and I got to pay for health insurance. Oh, so that 60,000 salary then turns into I need to make $80,000 to replace that 60,000. I could tell you that in 2 seconds, but most people jump into it, going, and then they're like, oh, then they start the business. But isn't he working? Oh, because they didn't plan for what the time frame for what reality. That reality didn't change. It was always there, but people don't put the time or effort in to be able to see it. And that's why, Ernestine, that business plan will take care of that, because you have to go through and research these things out. Is it going to be home office? If I'm going to be renting a place, then what does it take? Where I'm going to be renting? What is the rent expenses? And most renters will let you see what the cost for whoever was renting there before. What's the utilities? Well, what's my insurance agent? Do I have to get insurance? What's the cost in that insurance? They can give you a quote. But all that stuff is gathering up front. Most people just want to go into it and don't understand about the need to be able to measure twice, cut once. And then the other part of it too that I tell people, depending upon the business entity, will help you with your tax structure. And I was teaching a entrepreneur class this past week on Tuesday evening. That was a guest entrepreneur, and then they want me back. And there's 8 entrepreneurs. That's where I got a referral from. And based on what I was talking, they're like, the person I'm using didn't tell me about this. I need to get with you and make sure I plan this out right. I said, yeah. I mean, they set up an LLC, but they didn't know the difference about the tax consequences versus the legal structure. I'm like, you didn't understand it? I said, why did you set it up as a partnership versus this, versus that? And I was, I don't know. I'm like, you need to know that before you set this up. Now you invited tax consequences that you're locked into. Like I tell people myself, I was a sole proprietor up until I started Visions. I passed my 1-year mark. But up until then, I was a sole proprietor. And then someone asked the question, why did you go from sole proprietor to LLC? And that was a very astute question. And there is a reason for that. And most of it is tax consequence, because as an LLC, I'm an employee now of my LLC, which you can't be an employee of a sole proprietor. You're an owner of a sole proprietor. You have to take a draw out. So you pay 100% tax on that money you draw out. But as an employee under LLC, that's the salary is a deductible expense on my LLC. So if I was working for someone making $200,000, because of the tax consequences of me being an employee of my own LLC, I only have to make $100,000 now when you look at the deductible expenses you get as an LLC. But I knew that going in, because people was like, why did you leave a job making all that money and all? I said, no, I don't have to make that amount of money when I have this different tax structure. I have a 401k plan, which is deductible for me, that I pay for my retirement. I have liability insurance. I have unemployment insurance, all deductible. The only insurance that I don't get as a deductible one-on-one now is health insurance, because I'm as a single entity LLC, you can't take the health insurance as a deductible expense. I can take it on my personal taxes as a tax credit, but I can't take it as a deductible expense through my LLC. Now, if I add in employees and set up a 125 plan, then if I add one more employee, I can set up a plan and become deductible then. I know that. And you figure that in the cost. But that's why I shifted from sole proprietor to LLC. I didn't want it because I wanted to be a boss. I mean, you see all these people, LLC, why are you LLC? What type? Single entity, corporation, partnership? I don't know. Well, I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. That's like you starting to build a house, then you go to the architect and say, this is what I want.
Right.
So that's why I emphasize business plan, but people hate it because they say, why am I paying for business plan when I don't see anything? That's the point. It's a map to get you where you want to go. It's the same thing why we have GPS. GPS were unheard of 10 years ago. Now every car comes with them. But that's just the reality. So yeah, we'll deal with those. But yeah, so those are some good topics that I can lay out.
And thank you for saying that it takes about 6 months to a year to complete a business plan, because that has been on my head. And I've been like researching stuff and it seems like it's so much, but to know that it takes that long is like comforting. So
Oh, it can be like when I was working the other agency, I used to do 3-year plans, 5-year plans, but then I broke that into 1 year at a time. And then by the time I got through that 1 year, it might have changed for the second year, to where I had stayed up for the second year, I had to change it a little bit and then change it because your plans are dynamic, but at least they give you a way of direction. You don't want to be locked in a plan where you can't get off it. I'm in this path, the bridge is out. But this is the way I was supposed to go, and I'm going to go that way. Yeah.
Be flexible.
Yeah. It has to be dynamic based off the current. So that's good. I got about 5 topics then I can do and start working on.
Glad we can help you. Help us.
Well, I thank you guys for participating with this. This is helpful because it definitely is going to provide you to be better off going forward. That it's going to be able to stay and weather the storm. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll end that. Thank you for your participation in this. Remember, next month, March 13th, it'll be the final Loving Myself's part of the series, as then we'll shift into going into the entrepreneurial business phase. And remember to take that test. And for those, you can find the book out on Amazon. It's called Strength Finders by Tom Rath, Strength Finders 2.0. And there should be a test, a internet-based test that comes with the purchase of that. And that's going to be for your purpose, but it helps you narrow you down, especially for people who say, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. You have God-given ability to do things. And sometimes we try to force people to go into something we want to do, or what. Be careful with that with your kids and all that. But you have natural ability to do things, and your natural ability is what you've been purposed for. I just look at things differently. I process a lot of things differently in my mind, whereas a lot of people have to work at it. I can just see things. And I'm like, why are we doing this? And why they did this? And how come they rolled up the vaccination? That's ridiculous. They should have done it this way. It's just there. But most people are like, what are you talking about? But there are people who love fashion, people that can match different things. That's why I want you to find the strength within you, because that will help guide you to what you are to do, because that turns a job into a business. You don't feel yourself working. You're just living. That's what you get to. So take the time to find out, what are you good at? Sometimes you don't know. I didn't know that I was good at finance and business. I just did it. And it wasn't until when I was over in Europe and Germany, and I was talking to the person who I paid to be an executive coach for 2 years. This is what, that's what I said. It's going to cost you some time and money. I paid him out of my own $2,000 a month for 2 years. And I got a book out of it. I got Africa, Germany, and I got the experience to do this now.
And I'm sorry, that's when I remember that guy, Ronaldo or something like that. How old were you?
Yep, Ronald. Yep.
How old were you at when you did that? You were like in your late 30s, early 40s?
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it's kind of like you figured out all of that at that, like you figured out what you were good at in your early 40s.
Yep, because when I was over there, I mean, I'm teaching, preaching to thousands of people, and people were coming up, and I'm still hooked up with them on Facebook to this day. I'm working with folks to try to get back to Africa and go to Las Vegas that I was with in Africa and Germany I stayed with. Like I was saying, there's things that you do over time, getting yourself, and you just got to expose yourself to things. That's why I looked at Europe and I said, wow, Europe is so much differently. I know I'm going to eventually live over there. It's just, like you said, there's certain things that you do in your path of life as you go along that bring out this into you. And I operated as a CEO for many years for the company, but now I support other organizations, other CEOs, and I enjoy that much better than being a CEO over an organization myself. I know the mindset of CEOs and what they need and what they're going through, but I know how to support them in that manner. By me being the CEO of my own company, I can help other CEOs. And then laying out for things and seeing things into the future. You better be prepared for this. I already told my clients, be prepared. This pandemic has some long-standing effects and it's going to shift the marketplace. And you better be prepared for that. You don't want to be in the market at the wrong time. You're going to lose your shirt. That's the same thing with industry and business. Same thing. I mean, look in your industry, Chanel. When gyms start opening up and they're opening up, there's going to be some gyms, but I'm telling you, the money's also going to be, it's going to be split. It's not longer just going to be just gyms. People want to do stuff at home because they've now been indoctrinated into it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to operate in fitness, you're going to have to do both studio and then how do you do stuff in the home for people? And
I've been doing things through Duo and Zoom, like you're doing right now and everything.
You can train people that way.
I'm training someone in Texas through Duo right now. So
Awesome.
And that's what I'm saying. You know, people are like, wait, I want to get back to the gym. I'm going to be there. I'm telling you, people better be flexible on all this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working from my home. I told Ernestine, I said, before I invest in a building, I'm going to invest in a mobile unit and have a driver drive me around with a mobile office. To me, that's better than a building with something come. I can come to you. It's a tax deduction. It's mobile. I can go to conferences and be able to do work there. I can go to clients. Be able to have them come out and say, here's a screen, here's what. Why do I need to have a building to sit in there, burn up gas and all that when I mean, I might be only there 8 hours a day. See, those are things, that's why I'm trying to get people to get out of that. You got to look at these younger people. I mean, taxi drivers are going in, they're like, boo-hoo, all that, you know, get out of my yard type thing. And here we got Uber. But I'm going to tell you, Uber's going to go by the wayside when they have driverless cars. They already have them now. And when they start putting them out there, driverless cars, Uber's going to probably buy them up and do it. You don't need a driver. You don't need, and if you don't need drivers, you don't need garages because people don't need, and so what are you going to do with that real estate? So that's what I'm saying. You got to look down the road of what's the ripple effect of what's happening. And too many people are just so, you know, finite. They don't get to be able to see the next available thing that's coming. And that's kind of what an entrepreneur does, is look at what's out there. Understand what we were watching the other day? The guy that made those hang up hooks for blinds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They didn't get him. They didn't buy him on Shark Tank, but him just showing up there, and he lost on Shark Tank, and he's making what, $8 million a year now doing that. Because he saw something that others didn't see. That is what an entrepreneur does. That's why it's more so mind. And that's why I concentrate on the nutrition, embodying who you are, because what happens is you get up, build that up, and then you sell that, and then you go to the next thing. That's a true entrepreneur. So those are what we want to continue to stimulate and all that. And that's why you need to know your own strengths about what you want to do and all that, and be able to stay in that, because if you get off of that, that's going to take and divide your energy up, and you're not going to be as effective. So that's why It's okay. That's why I said loving yourself. It's okay to say no. It's okay to build things. I used to didn't believe that. I thought that was selfish. And now I can sit there. There was someone, a client that came to me. I have a boundary. The book Boundaries that I talk about, I have a boundary set up before I'll do a free consult. But after that, out comes the contract. That's a boundary. Because if you want to pay $80, $100 out, then you got me. You just want to keep talking. Because I have to pay. If no money coming in, I don't pay bills. And that's a different mindset than having a job. You know, so I have to put boundaries. There's a person that wanted me to do one part of an operational analysis so they can open up their catering business and all this type of thing. I did the first consult. They were supposed to have their stuff. Haven't had it. Boom. In the past, I would have been calling them. Hey, do you want? Hey, sure. Because I know when they're ready. Boom.
That's the same thing with fitness. You know, people will say they're ready, and then, you know, I would put a lot of time and energy and, you know, making the plans and stuff, and then it's like, oh, they fall off. But then it's just like, hey, you have to let me know. You have to give me the money, because I'm just not putting all that energy and time into it, especially with my family. Like, that's what made me put the boundaries, is that I have a big family and I can only put so much time toward that. So.
And that is true. You got to. And now, even with my clients, if my clients, they pay me a retainer monthly up front at the first of the month for me to work on them. And then I bill them for the rest of the remaining. I just instituted that in December. That's just another boundary put on, because I was worried, because everybody wants it until you have, because what is the language of business? Currency. All that talk is great. Words don't mean nothing. Deposits. I'm telling you, mindset is different. One of my mentors used to tell me when I was doing, as a sole proprietor, I was doing tax returns, I'd do $5,000 to $10,000 a year just doing tax returns, charging $40, this and that, and all that. And he said, that's a hobby for you. It's not business. And I was assaulted. I was like, what? And I saw the difference now, because I didn't have to. If people didn't pay, because I had a job and payment. Now,
Right.
I need that $1,000. I better collect that thing. So I see what he was saying now. So I have to screen out the hobbyists. And that's not being ignorant. And I agree with you, Chanel. Family is a lot of and you see family and friends.
Yeah.
Those have to be for your charity giving work. And you got to budget that in. You got to.
Right.
You can't. Because then they will pop out of the woodwork and don't appreciate the stuff. But those are the things that's why I said you got to get yourself ready and right. And like I said, this has been over a 10-year journey for me to finally release to do what I've been wanting to do. And even that, you still got to work it. You still got to work it. Who's this? Who's this next one? What's this next one? How about this? Can you do this? Can you do that? So I appreciate you continue with me through this journey, so that we can have more and more people. And what I'm learning is I can make money replicating myself. I mean, that's all I'm doing. But it works. It works. One of my clients, I was for 9 months. They hired a person. I worked with them, helped transition. I got called back in December because they needed a replacement. I did it. I worked for another month or 2 months. Then they got another person. But they know if they need somebody, they're going to call me. That's with 1 year's time. And then you get this referrals and get other things you can learn. So this is a whole process and journey. So thank you for guys. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right. You have a good rest of the day.
You too. See you guys later.
All right.
Okay, see you, Sister Chanel. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. See ya.
Trying to leave, it won't let me.
Oh.